Sorry.
Okay.
Can we continue? Okay. So
Okay.
why glycogen? Okay. We can continue. So why glycogen as an energy storage molecule? The first one, because fat cannot be rapidly mobilized compared to glycogen. Glycogen is faster. Fat, you need to give ATP to fat first before we can break down the fat. Okay, which is the point number 3 lah. Energy input required to initiate fat oxidation. Second, fat cannot be oxidized to produce energy in the absence of oxygen. Means that during intense exercise, we will use glycogen instead of fat. Anybody here likes to run marathon or likes to go to the gym? Ada tak in this group?
Yes.
Ada? Faiz? Adakah siapa nama Faiz?
Faris.
Faris. So Faris, can you speak a little bit?
Ya, doktor.
Faris ada?
Ya, ada.
Faris,
Ya.
when you work out in the gym, did you use any apps? Ada guna apps tak?
Guna apps.
Macam apps tu dia macam calculate your energy berapa banyak kilo calories yang dah bakar.
Tak
ada?
sangat, doktor.
Oh, so awak buat macam ikut minutes je lah. Awak tak kira lah berapa banyak energy awak bakar. Okay, usually in the apps, it will show you whether your heart rate is in the zone of the fat burning or in the zone of intense exercise. Kalau awak buat intense exercise, usually it won't burn the fat, but it will burn the glycogen. Okay, so these people who usually run, they will know lah about these apps.
Doctor,
Yeah.
Doctor, sorry to interrupt you, but Fatima is waiting for you to accept her in the waiting room.
Fatima. I think I already admit her lah. Fatima Ghazali, Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to allow you to enter the room.
Okay, thank you, doctor.
Okay. So we continue. Okay. The last point is no conversion of fat to glucose available in body in order to maintain blood glucose levels. So usually when you burn the fat, you will produce ketone bodies instead of glucose. So you cannot maintain the blood glucose level. So it is important for tissues such as the brain, okay, because brain will prefer the glucose compared to the fat. But when you break the TAG, triacylglycerol, you know the structure of TAG, right? Do you remember the structure of TAG? It's a glycerol plus 3.
Triglyceride.
Okay, glycerol plus 3 fatty acid, kan?
Yeah.
Okay, so when we break this one, we will produce glycerol plus 3 fatty acid, and this fatty acid will produce what we call as ketone bodies, and this one, it will produce glucose. Glycerol, how many carbon? Do you know glycerol, how many carbon? Tahu tak glycerol berapa carbon ni?
3.
3 kan? So pyruvate pun 3 carbon kan?
Yes.
So what happen is glycerol will be converted to pyruvate, and then pyruvate can enter into gluconeogenesis in the liver to produce the sugar. So the liver will maintain the blood glucose level. But under starvation or exercise, it will prioritize brain first. It will give sugar to brain first. Yang lain guna fat dulu. Okay? Until you finish all the sugar storage, it will turn into protein, okay, to produce more sugar for the brain. Brain will use ketone bodies after sugar is finished only. Ketone bodies ni macam fat lah, tapi dia soluble fat. So continue use when intracellular level of glucose and ATP are low. Okay, so glycogen is used when level of glucose and ATP in the body is low. Lysis is a degradation of glycogen. Muscle glycogen is fuel for muscle contraction. Liver glycogen is mostly converted to glucose. What do you understand from these two sentences? Okay, it means that there are two types of glycogen. The first one we call as muscle glycogen, and the second one we call as liver glycogen. Both of them got the same structure but different function. Muscle glycogen provide glucose for muscle only, but liver glycogen provides glucose to bloodstream, to all the cells in the body to use. Okay, so the muscle cell is a little bit selfish lah compared to liver. Liver always prioritize other places first. Although the structure of glycogen is similar to starch, but the breakdown of glycogen is different in the body compared to the starch. Okay, in starch outside can be degraded by using hydrolysis, but the glycogen inside the body needs to go through several different enzymes. Okay, there are three major enzymes. The first one is glycogen phosphorylase, second glycogen debranching enzyme, and the third one is glycogen phosphoglucomatase. Okay, based on the name, what do you think the function of second enzyme, glycogen debranching enzyme? Apa function dia?
Dia macam
Branch.
dia macam
Okay,
isomer.
Build up ke?
to remove the branch of glycogen. Okay, and how about the third one?
Phosphate.
Okay, remember what means by mutase? Remember what means by mutase?
Isomer.
Okay, isomer, to produce isomer. Okay, so do you know what I'm trying to draw here? Ni glycogen lah.
Glycogen.
Okay, so what happen is the second enzyme, it will cut the branch here. Understand? Okay, so remember the branch contains different bond compared to the non-branch one, which is alpha 1,6 glycosidic bond here. But here all contain alpha 1,4, okay, which can be cut using glycogen phosphorylase. So what happen is glycogen phosphorylase will cut one glucose molecule from the glycogen and attach phosphate to it. Okay, plus glucose N minus 1. You understand what means by glucose N minus 1? Let's say we have 50 glucose molecule here. So bila kita cut satu, dia akan jadi 1 glucose plus 49 lah glucose here. You understand or not this one?
Tak.
Tak faham? Sekejap.
Repeat, Doctor.
Okay.
Faham?
This is glucose, this is glycogen molecule, the big one. Let's say this glycogen molecule contains 50 glucose molecule. You calculate lah 1, 2, 3, 4 sampai 50. Faham tak? Ni ada 50 glycogen 50 glucose molecule in one glycogen structure. Faham?
Faham?
Okay. So when glycogen phosphorylase cuts one glucose from this molecule, so the result will be 1 glucose 1 phosphate plus 49 more glucose. So maksudnya kita delete, sorry, we get rid of 1 lah. This one tinggal 49 je lah. Understand?
Faham.
Faham
Faham,
seperti
betul.
strip. Okay, dia macam ajar tadika sikit lah ni. Okay, slowly. Alright. So what happen is glycogen phosphorylase will produce what we call as glucose 1-phosphate. Can we use this glucose 1-phosphate in glycolysis? Can or not?
Can.
What? Are you sure? Can we use or not? After glucose, what is the next molecule in glycolysis? It's
Bukan.
going to be glucose 6, right?
Phosphate.
Glucose 6, right?
Yes.
So what happen is it needs to convert this one to glucose 6-phosphate first using this enzyme, phosphoglucomatase. Okay, and up to certain point when you reach this branch, you need to cut this one using glycogen debranching enzyme. Okay, do you understand so far? Okay, the explanation will be here. Okay, so what happen is glucose N equivalent to glucose 1-phosphate plus glucose N minus 1 for when glycogen phosphorylase is in action, the first one. So it will cut the alpha 1,4 glycosidic bond. Okay, so this is an example. From 3 glucose molecule, it becomes 2 plus 1. But this one is glucose 1-phosphate. So you need to use glycogen phosphoglucometase first to convert this one into glucose 6-phosphate. So what happens for glycogen debranching enzyme? This is a little bit special. So what happens is, after the first enzyme, cut the glucose molecule until it reach 4 or 3 glucose molecule from the branch. Okay, statement tu faham tak? Maksudnya dia sampai, saya lukis. Siapa pun nak masuk ni? Okay, it will cut until dia sampai 4 glucose molecule from the branch. Do you understand this statement?
Faham.
Okay, so enzyme first dia akan cut until reach 4 glucose molecule from the branch. Then glycogen debranching enzyme will come and it will transfer these 3 into here, into the longer chain. Nampak dia pindah ke sini? Do you understand?
Nampak.
Okay, tak faham?
Yes.
Faham.
Okay, it's pretty straightforward. Maksudnya dia akan transfer 3 glucose ni pergi ke yang lagi panjang. Here. Okay, this is what we call as a transferase activity, the first activity. The second activity what we call as alpha 1,6 glycosidase activity, which is this one. Ni kan different kan, dia punya bond kan? Dia alpha 1,6 This one is alpha 1,4. Okay, so it will cut this one and it will produce glucose 6-phosphate, which is different from here. Yang ni kita produce glucose 1-phosphate kan? Ni dia produce glucose 6-phosphate. Okay, so this one can enter into glycolysis directly. Alright, so this is the action of glycogen debranching enzyme.
Doktor,
Okay. Sorry, ya.
ada orang dekat waiting room, dia terkeluar tadi.
Oh, sekejap macam mana ni? I think this one. Wait, how to find who is in the waiting room? Oh, this one. Okay, can we move on? So you know the function of glucose phosphoglucometase, right?
Convert to glucose 6-phosphate.
Phosphate to enter into glycolysis. Okay, all of this actually happens when you have low blood glucose level. Okay, for example, when you are fasting or when you are doing exercise. So the glucose will be low in the blood because you use the glucose lah. And then the body will release certain hormone, for example, adrenaline and also glucagon to increase the glucose level in the blood, right? So we also have the reverse reaction, which is glycogen synthesis. Okay, glycogen synthesis sometimes we call as glycogenesis, glycogenesis, all right? So the process of 4 compared to breakdown. Breakdown, they got 3 process, glycogen synthesis got 4. The first reaction is through glucose phosphoglucometase. So what happened is from glucose 6-phosphate, okay, mula kita ada glucose, and then kita produce glucose 6-phosphate in glycolysis, and then kita produce fructose 6-phosphate kan. And then eventually kita akan produce pyruvate. This is glycolysis kan, remember kan? Remember not?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so when we have lots of ATP, the body will inhibit this reaction and a lot of glucose 6-phosphate will start to accumulate. So what happens is the body will convert this one to glucose 1-phosphate first, the reverse daripada breakdown. Alright, through mutase. Okay, which is this one, the first one. Okay, glucose 1-phosphate. And then this glucose 1-phosphate will be converted to what we call as glucose UDP. Okay, this is a little bit tricky. Remember ATP kan? Ingat tak saya cakap ada lagi form lain, for example GTP, right?
Yes.
Okay, we also have another form we call as UTP. What is UTP?
Uracil.
Uracil, okay, triphosphate. Okay, so it's another form of energy currency. So during glycogen synthesis, it will utilize mostly UTP. Okay, so what happens is this UTP will be undergo a breakdown into UDP and it will release energy. But this UDP will actually bind to this glucose. Okay, why we need to bind this UDP to glucose? Because this is what we call as anabolic reaction. Anabolic reaction, we need to attach to energetic molecule, for example, ATP. Okay. Alamak semua. Okay, so now we have glucose 6-phosphate convert to glucose 1-phosphate and then convert to glucose UDP, and then this glucose UDP can attach to smaller glycogen molecule and becomes bigger glycogen molecule. For example, this glucose is going to be G+1. Faham tak apa maksud G plus N+1? Gn+1.
Tak.
Tadi kan Gn-1 kan?
Tambah fosfat kan?
So maksudnya kita ada 49 glukos, for example, in the glycogen molecule. So kita tambah satu glukos is going to be 50 lah.
50.
50 ni example je 50, it can be thousands kan. Okay, so this glucose UDP actually can attach to the growing chain here. Okay, ni dia boleh attach kat sini. And at the size of the glycogen. Okay, so as you can see from here, there are 4 reactions. Okay, the first one is this one. The second is this one. The third is this one. Okay, the last one actually, another one is branching. Do you know what means by branching? Branching ni tambah dahan lah. Add branch. Okay, so let's say you already have a very long glucose molecule, you add branch at certain point of the glycogen molecule. Okay, so remember for glycogen breakdown 3 reaction, for glycogen synthesis there are going to be 4 reaction. Okay, any questions so far?
Doktor, kan yang breakdown of glycogen tadi, kan dia akan start masuk ke, kan dia akan jadi glucose 6-phosphate kan?
Betul.
Yang glucose 6-phosphate tu akan terus masuk dalam glycolysis ke? Glycolysis juga.
Betul lah, dia akan masuk dalam glycolysis lah.
So kiranya dia guna fat tu, dia tukar ke glucose 6-phosphate untuk guna balik dalam glycolysis tu?
Sebenarnya glucose 6-phosphate tu, sekejap saya lukis lah. Kan daripada glucose 1-phosphate just now kan? Dia convert kepada glucose 6-phosphate kan? Actually dia akan pergi atas gluconeogenesis, dia akan produce glucose. So ingat benda ni jadi kat liver kan? Ingat tak? Saya cakap jadi liver.
Yes, liver.
Okay. Liver ni function dia untuk produce gula untuk darah kan? Okay, kata lain darah kan? Saluran darah. So bila dia produce glucose 6-phosphate, glucose ni dia akan keluar daripada liver, dia akan masuk dalam darah. Dia pergi pada sel lain.
Okay.
Saya cakap dia masuk glycolysis tu, dia masuk glycolysis reaction lah. Sometimes
okay.
liver boleh bakar terus dia jadi pyruvate, tapi selalunya liver akan keluarkan dia jadi glukos.
Faham tak?
Faham eh?
Faham.
So dalam proses ni dia kena buang satu fosfat lah untuk jadi glukos sahaja. Saya tak ingatlah saya ada cakap ke tak. Apakah function fosfat dalam glucosifosfat ni? Ingat saya ada cakap tak last week? Dia actually dia nak trap glukos ni dalam sel. Saya ada cakap ke tak ada? Maybe another group ke? Okay. So bila kita trapping glukos, bila kita tak fosfat ni, kita trap dalam sel lah. So bila kita remove fosfat ni, dia glukosnya keluar lah daripada liver, dia akan masuk dalam darah. Alright? Any more question? Any more question? Okay, can we move on? Okay, for this one, you don't have to take a look lah. Okay, it's a little bit confusing. Just take a look at the two types of the glycogen storage disease. The first one is defect in glucose 6 phosphatase. It also affects gluconeogenesis. Why? It can cause enlarged liver and hypoglycemia. Okay, kenapa dia boleh affect gluconeogenesis? Kalau tengok kepada gluconeogenesis punya ni, can you see this one? Glucose 6 phosphatase here? Ingat tak glukos nak pergi glucose 6 phosphate, dia perlukan hexokinase kan? Tapi ni dia kena guna enzim lain, so dia guna glucose 6 phosphatase. So, although kita boleh breakdown glycogen, tapi glycogen ni tak boleh nak keluar. Glukos tak boleh nak keluar. So, dia jadi terkumpul lah dalam liver tu. You understand the first one? The defective, the disease? Faham eh? Okay, sebab tu dia affect gluconeogenesis as well. Sebab this is actually one of the enzyme in gluconeogenesis. It can cause enlarged liver because the glycogen cannot be broken down anymore. Dia dah terkumpul, and then it can cause hypoglycemia. Means that you will have low blood glucose level because liver cannot produce the sugar. The second type of glycogen storage disease is deficiency in debranching enzyme. Means that it cannot cut the branch. The symptoms would be almost similar to the first one, just the mechanism is different, right? So you don't have to know in detail lah. I think the most important diseases that you need to know is diabetes type 1 and 2. Later we will take a look. Okay, so the regulation of glycogen metabolism. Okay, the most important enzyme for the breakdown is phosphorylase, the first one, but the most important for synthesis is glycogen synthase, which is when you add the UDP glucose to the glycogen molecule. All right. So this is actually the regulated point as well. All right. And they are actually regulated by hormone. For example, insulin, glucagon, cortisol, and epinephrine. Have you ever heard about insulin? Pernah dengar insulin? Okay. So what is the effect of insulin on glycogen breakdown?
Dia regulate blood sugar level kan?
Tapi apakah kesan insulin kepada pemecahan glycogen?
Prevent the breakdown.
Okay, it will prevent the breakdown and it will stimulate the synthesis, right? Betul tak?
Yes.
Okay, so usually happens after we eat. Okay, after we eat, the insulin will be released and it will stop the breakdown of glycogen and speed up the formation of glycogen. Okay, and glucagon is the opposite of insulin. How about cortisol? Cortisol pernah dengar tak?
Pernah.
Yes.
Okay, so another name for cortisol is stress hormone lah. So when usually you are stressed when you got a lot of assignment, you will get headache and everything. So usually your blood will contain lots of cortisol. Cortisol is catabolic hormone. So it's actually similar to glucagon, but it is released under different condition. So glucagon is released when your blood glucose level is low, kan? But cortisol is released when you are stressed. How about epinephrine?
Adrenaline.
Adrenaline, right? So this is another catabolic hormone and released usually during exercise. Okay, so cortisol is the chronic, means that long time, for example, stress, but epinephrine is acute, means that it is released when you are in the face of immediate danger. Exercise kan like danger kan, in immediate action, right? So you need to know the differences between these hormone. Okay, so as we know, insulin is anabolic hormone. It promotes the conversion of glucose into glycogen. Insulin is produced by beta cell of the pancreas. Insulin stimulates the target organ tissues to store and conserve fuel and decrease rate of fuel oxidation. Okay. So this is the insulin function. You can read it yourself, but the important one, you need to know that it can inhibit glycogen breakdown and speed up the glycogen formation. Okay, for example, when you are fasting, the insulin will be low, the glucose transport in the cell will be low, and the glycogen synthesis will go down. Okay, but after you eat, the body will release the insulin, which promotes the glucose transport into the cell and increase the glycogen synthesis. Okay, it's the same. Okay, now we go to the most important diseases, which is the diabetes type 1 and 2. So what's the difference between diabetes type 1 and 2 in terms of the mechanism? Guys, ada lagi tak ni?
Ada saya jawab tengah fikir.
Tengah berfikir. Selalu dengar kan diabetes ni? Kencing manis.
Selalu sir.
Tapi tak tahu kenapa.
Diabetes type 1, they just start producing insulin. But diabetes type 2, it doesn't respond to insulin.
Which is correct. Okay. Diabetes type 1, the source of the insulin is damaged. But diabetes type 2, the cell that respond to the insulin is damaged. Ada tak sini? Okay, for example, this one, this picture, this is the lecture notes of another group. Okay. What happened is, for diabetes type 1, this beta cell is damaged. Understand?
Yes.
Okay, so no insulin, so the blood will have consistently high glucose level. That's why we call them as kencing manis. Okay, how about type 2? Type 2, these cells that respond to insulin is broken down. Understand? Although we have lots of insulin, but sugar still cannot enter into the cell. You understand?
Faham sir?
Okay, so that's the main difference lah. Any question about the diabetes?
Sir, kalau yang type 1, dia akan receive insulin injection kan selalunya?
Yes, which is
Kalau
correct.
Kalau type 2?
Type 2 what happens? What do you think we can do?
Sebab dia tak ada sel tu, dia kena inject sel dia tak?
Okay, one approach is you can still inject insulin. So what happen, you flood the insulin inside the cell. Katalah insulin ni, okay, insulin already high kan? So we inject more insulin. So that cell ni, dia resistant terhadap insulin, tapi bila dah banyak, dia akan uptake juga sikit sugar masuk.
Oh.
Understand?
Understand?
Okay. Second is, diabetes type 2 ni because of lifestyle lah. Because you eat too much sugar, and then you are not exercising, tak exercise, di rumah je. So banyak blood sugar dalam blood lah. So lama-lama dia punya reseptor rosak tau on the cell. The receptor we call as insulin receptor. Boleh rosak, So dia tak respon terhadap insulin dah. So over time dia memerlukan lagi banyak insulin untuk boleh membolehkan gula tu masuk.
Oh, faham.
Contohnya macam apa? Macam katalah awak macam bakteria kan. Kalau kita bagi banyak sangat antibiotik, the bacteria can be resistant to the antibiotic. Pernah dengar tak?
Benar.
Okay, the same as our cell. If there is too much insulin over time because our unhealthy eating, this receptor on the cell will become resistant to the insulin. So what happen is the first treatment they can add more insulin to allow to reduce the resistance lah. Maksudnya macam bakteria ada resistant terhadap antibiotik, we add more antibiotic so that the bacteria can be killed somehow. Dia sama macam tu lah dia punya analogi. Tapi if we flood more insulin, over time dia akan makin resistant lah. You understand?
Huh?
Okay, so another approach is you kena jaga makan. You need to change your lifestyle. So you need to reduce your sugar intake and exercise. Because when you exercise, this receptor yang rosak tu, dia boleh pulih balik. Dia can recover.
Oh, okay, faham.
Another way, because of course when we eat, for example rice kan, kita makan nasi kan. Nasi contains a lot of sugar lah because it is a carbohydrate based food. Sebab tu orang cakap jangan makan nasi sangat untuk orang yang ada diabetes type 2 ni. Okay, they suggest you to do what we call as Atkins diet. Pernah Atkins diet?
Dia tukar ke protein kan, Doktor?
Protein and fat. Because protein and fat, it will not induce insulin formation. Sebab insulin ni untuk glukos sahaja. So kalau fat ataupun protein, dia tak perlukan insulin untuk masuk dalam sel ni. Understand
Yes, understand, Doktor.
Okay. So over time, bila kita dah tak abuse sangat insulin receptor ni, dia akan recover lah. Dan bila dia dah okay, baru you boleh makan balik sugar. Alright? So that's the difference between insulin type 1 and 2. Any more question about the insulin type 1 and 2? Okay, at home you can take a look why people with diabetes type 1, usually they are very thin, slim. But for diabetes type 2, they are usually very fat. Okay, you can take a look. Why? It's very interesting.
Doktor.
Sorry?
Kalau diabetes type 1 tu bukan based on keturunan.
Yes. Orang yang diabetes type 1 ni lahir-lahir dah ada lah. Which is you are unlucky lah. Okay? Diabetes type 2 ni bila you dah probably lepas 30 tahun after you abuse your body, then you will get diabetes type 2. Okay? Understand?
Faham, Doktor.
Okay, any more question? Any more question? No?
Tak ada ke, Doktor?
Okay, can we move on? Okay, this is just the summary lah. Okay, for example, it gives you one example of catabolic hormone. It can be glucagon or adrenaline. Okay, what happens is it will activate several reactions, and for catabolic hormone, it will inhibit lah synthesis. Okay, but for breakdown, for example, glycogen phosphorylase, it will promote lysis, and it will also promote, because catabolic breakdown, right? So it will promote the lipase in the adipose tissue to promote lipolysis. Okay, so when you exercise, you release a lot of adrenaline. You akan inhibit the synthesis, tapi you akan promote the breakdown of fat and also sugar. Okay, wait. Okay, so now we enter into gluconeogenesis, means the formation of sugar. So you need to remember the location of glycolysis is only in cytoplasm, but the location of gluconeogenesis happens in, tahu tak location dekat mana? Okay, so for example, this is the cell kan. Lepas tu kita ada mitochondria kan. Glycolysis dia jadi kat cytoplasm. How about gluconeogenesis? Dia jadi kat mana?
Liver.
Liver tu organ. Dekat dalam sel kat mana? Is it here? Okay, here. Okay, so as you can see from here, glucose breakdown into pyruvate happens all in cytoplasm. But gluconeogenesis happens from pyruvate. It will enter into mitochondria. And then it will go out again and enter into cytoplasm again. And finally, add glucose 6-phosphate to glucose. This will happen in endoplasmic reticulum. Can you understand this one? So ada 3 location for gluconeogenesis. Can you understand?
Faham Doktor?
Okay. Kenapa endoplasmic reticulum? If you learn about endoplasmic reticulum in your secondary school, one of the function is to package and transport the molecule to outside of the cell. Okay, so glucose 6-phosphate ni dia akan tukar pada glucose ini, dia akan transport dalam vesicle lah, keluar daripada liver. Okay, to enter into the blood vessel. Okay, so that's the main reason why the last one happens in endoplasmic reticulum. So we go back. Okay, so the major producer of glucose, the first is liver and second is kidney. Under fasting condition, gluconeogenesis will supply almost all of the blood glucose. Gluconeogenesis is a process by which glucose is made from small non-carbohydrate precursor. For example, lactic acid and pyruvate. So after we exercise, we produce lactic acid. This lactic acid can be converted into glucose. Pyruvate, of course, is the reverse reaction of glycolysis. Most amino acid can be converted to glucose as well. So after we finish the glycogen storage, we will turn into amino acid to produce sugar. Then glycerol from TAG. Okay, these 3 fatty acids will enter into the process of lipid oxidation, but the one glycerol molecule will enter into gluconeogenesis. Any metabolite that can be converted to pyruvate or oxaloacetate can be a glucose precursor. You remember where we can find this oxaloacetate? This molecule? This TCA cycle, right? And if you take a look at the
citric acid cycle.
yes, TCA cycle lah. Okay, citric acid cycle and TCA cycle is similar, remember? And if you take a look at the gluconeogenesis, pyruvate, it will enter into mitochondria and it will convert it into oxaloacetate. So anything that can produce oxaloacetate can be converted into glucose. Okay. It says anything that can be converted to oxaloacetate, right? So anything inside TCA cycle can form oxaloacetate. Do you understand this statement?
Tak.
Okay, kita go sikit So this is TCA cycle. Okay, oxaloacetate is here, right? My statement is anything that can produce any molecule in the TCA cycle can be converted into sugar because all of them, they can go round and eventually they can produce oxaloacetate. Do you understand?
Faham ke?
Okay, so sebab ada, for example, glutamate, salah satu one of the amino acid, it can actually be converted into alpha ketoglutarate. This alpha ketoglutarate will eventually produce succinate-CoA, succinate, malate, and finally it will produce oxaloacetate, and it can be converted into sugar. Okay, so that's why it says anything that can produce oxaloacetate or pyruvate can be converted into sugar. Okay, where is that? Okay, can we continue?
Yes.
Okay, so gluconeogenesis, the reaction is like this. You will require 2 pyruvate, and then you will require 2 NADH, and you will require 6 ATP. So it is very energetically expensive to produce sugar. Okay, and finally you will produce 1 glucose, 2 NAD plus, 4 ADP and 2 GTP, and 6 phosphate. So it will employ 4 new steps to avoid irreversible steps of glycolysis. The first one that it needs to, the first one it needs to go through is pyruvate kinase. Dia terbalik kan? Pyruvate kinase ni reaction last sekali dalam glycolysis. Yang ni yang kita perlukan 2 enzim ni untuk overcome ni.
Comelnya oren.
Ha? Orang apa pula ni? Siapa ni? Do you understand this statement? First reaction in gluconeogenesis is pyruvate kinase. Dia kena overcome ni dulu. Okay, saya tunjuk sini. Okay, so PEP to pyruvate using pyruvate kinase. So nak overcome ni dia kena go through another route using pyruvate carboxylase and also carboxy kinase. Okay, so this is 2 steps lah. 2 steps. Tapi phosphofructokinase it just require 1 step. Okay, instead of phosphofructokinase here it will need fructose 1,6-biphosphatase. Okay, and the last one is hexokinase. Hexokinase it will require glucose 6-phosphatase. Okay. Yang lain, all the other enzymes they are all the same. For example, from here to here, it will require similar enzymes in glycolysis because it can be reversed. Okay. I hope you understand. Gluconeogenesis occurs when pyruvate kinase, PFK, phosphofructokinase, and hexokinase are relatively inactive because they are reverse reaction. 3 steps must be bypassed to prevent futile cycle. Bukan 3 steps, these steps. Okay, so these 3 will require 4 steps. Futile cycle ni, do you know what means by futile? Tahu tak apa maksud futile? Futile ni sia-sia in Malay. Macam kalau both happening at the same rate, then sia-sia lah, you break glucose and then you form it again. Okay, so it means that one reaction must be slowed down, which is glycolysis, but the reverse reaction must be turned up. Tapi kalau glycolysis laju, the gluconeogenesis must be slowed down. Okay, so it needs to be bypassed to prevent futile cycle lah. Okay, making glucose is expensive, 6 ATP. Gluconeogenesis enzyme are cytosylic, means in the cytoplasm, except for glucose 6-phosphatase in ER and pyruvate carboxylase in mitochondria. This is the reaction. You can take a look yourself. This is the reaction 11, like I said to you, not 10. Okay, the step, we just show you the step that we need to bypass, which are the 4 steps. Okay, the other steps we're not going to show because they are the same. Okay, the first one is pyruvate plus bicarbonate. Bicarbonate is actually CO2 lah, plus ATP, and it will produce oxaloacetate. So if we use ATP, what kind of reaction is this? Reaction apa yang guna ATP?
Anabolic.
Tak, yang 6 type of reaction tu. Ligase, okay? Because you can see the phosphate is actually not transferred here, but it's in the form of inorganic phosphate. Second, what type of reaction is this? This is most likely, kalau ada kinase apa? Most likely a transferase reaction sebab ada nama kinase. But in reality, actually there are more than one reaction in here. For now, we just agree that we only have kinase, which is the transferase reaction. Okay, you can try to do this tutorial yourself. Okay, we go straight to the next one. Okay, the first step, which is pyruvate carboxylase in mitochondria. Pyruvates will enter the mitochondria via a transporter. It will produce oxaloacetate. It will catalyze a irreversible carboxylation reaction. So carboxylation add carbon dioxide. If decarboxylation, we remove. Reaction type is ligase. it is activated by acetyl-CoA. So if we got a lot of acetyl-CoA, means that a lot of energy, then we don't have to break down the sugar anymore. We can start forming the sugar instead. Accumulation of acetyl-CoA from fatty acid oxidation signals abundant energy and direct pyruvate to oxaloacetate for gluconeogenesis. Okay, steps 2. In cytoplasm, oxaloacetate get reduced to malate in mitochondria, which can diffuse out of the mitochondria to the cytosol. Do you understand this sentence?
Oh,
Okay. Macam ni pyruvate dalam cytoplasm kan? It will
Yes.
enter into mitochondria kan?
Yes.
And then it will produce oxaloacetate. OAA lah. But this oxaloacetate, it cannot go out from mitochondria because there is no transporter. So this OAA need to be converted into malate first. Malate ni je boleh keluar. So kat sini dia ada malate lah. But this malate will be converted back into oxaloacetate. Baru oxaloacetate ni converted into PEP, phosphoenolpyruvate. Okay, so the reason why it needs to be converted to malate first, because it tries to transport this oxaloacetate out from mitochondria. I think it's here, this one. Do you understand? This one, pyruvate, dia masuk dalam mitochondria, they convert to malate first. Malate can go out and then it can be converted into oxaloacetate first. But sometimes we cancel this out because dia macam, we can cancel each other out lah. Okay, because we eventually we want the oxaloacetate outside of the cell, right? Okay, steps 3, not really step 3, but we skip others because others are the same. So the first one is fructose 1,6 biphosphatase. It is a simple hydrolysis reaction. So from here, we add H2O and we break this one into 2 molecules, which is phosphate and also fructose 6-phosphate. The final step is in endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, we skip this step 2 because it is just the same as glycolysis. Okay, so it will require glucose 6-phosphatase. This is another reaction of glucose 6-phosphate plus H2O, produce glucose plus phosphate. What kind of reaction is this? Out of the 6. Hydrolysis, right? Because it requires water and it produces 2 molecules. Okay. So it is a metabolically reversible reaction. Okay. The same. So you can refer this one. This is the easier one. Okay. You can see the location. You can see the type of reaction and so on. Regulation of gluconeogenesis. Yeah.
Doctor, I have a question on step 3, I guess. Why oxaloacetate cannot directly come out from the cell? Why it need to be converted to malate first?
Okay. The first answer is because God says so lah. Dia cakap boleh keluar. Okay. Secondly, because there is no transporter for oxaloacetate.
Okay, doctor.
Okay. So means that the transporter that we need is the malate. Ada transporter dekat sini kan. Sometimes when you need to go out from the membrane, you need the malate. You need certain kind of transporter lah. So what you can do, you can convert to malate first. Baru dia boleh keluar from the mitochondrial matrix. Okay. So the answer is because there is no transporter for oxaloacetate lah. Alright.
Thank you, doctor.
Okay, regulation of gluconeogenesis is just similar to glycolysis. So glycolysis, there are 3 reactions that is being regulated, but gluconeogenesis, there are 4. Okay, they are being regulated by similar molecule, but with opposite result. Okay, the same as the question that I asked during the beginning of the lecture lah. Okay, for example, ATP can reduce glycolysis, but it can speed up the gluconeogenesis. Okay, it's pretty straightforward this one. You can see the kind of molecule that regulate the gluconeogenesis and glycolysis. Okay, so this is the overall reaction. From glucose, you can produce glucose 6-phosphate, you can undergo gluconeogenesis, and then you can reverse in the liver to produce back the glucose. Or if you have enough energy, you can go to another reaction, which is formation of glycogen. If you don't have enough sugar, you will break the glycogen. Okay, this is a little bit confusing, so you need to really pay attention. I use a different picture, I think it's easier. Wait, Okay, Cori cycle. What means by cycle?
Kitaran.
Dia pusing lah kitaran kan. So kalau satu lagi yang fatty acid oxidation tu spiral tu lain kan. Kita dah go through So Cori cycle ni dia happens during exercise, during no oxygen, thus formation of lactic acid. The main purpose is to rebalance NAD+ and NADH. Pyruvate being produced in muscle. Okay, so tengok gambar rajah ni, see this picture. You need to know the first one is, this one is the muscle part. This one is the blood. This one is the liver. So during exercise, glucose will be converted into pyruvate. But pyruvate cannot enter into the mitochondria kan? Because no oxygen. So this pyruvate will be converted into lactic acid. Right or not? Ingat tak? Okay. So during glycolysis, the body will get 2 ATP only. And we also have the product of NADH. Kan ingat tak? Product of glycolysis. Ada ATP, ada NADH, ada pyruvate. Right? But after we form pyruvate, this NADH cannot be converted back to NAD+. Because the conversion of NADH back to NAD+ happens only in electron transport chain. Tapi dekat sini dia tak boleh convert. Sebab tu dia kena convert kepada lactic acid. Baru kita convert balik NADH ni kepada NAD+. So dia balance lah. Faham tak? Sebab kita dah convert pergi NADH, then we convert back to NAD+. Alright, it's balance, right?
Balance.
Okay, balance kan? Tapi we have another problem, which is the accumulation of lactic acid. Lactic acid need to be degraded lah, in this case into glucose. So what happens is lactic acid will be transported in the blood to the liver. So this lactic acid will be converted into pyruvate first, and in this process it will need to use 2 NAD+ into 2 NADH. Okay. Now we have pyruvate, right? But the problem is we have lots of NADH. This NADH needs to be converted back to NAD+. So it will undergo gluconeogenesis from pyruvate to glucose. Now we have balanced amount of NAD+ and NADH, right? Understand?
Asal betul.
Okay, so glucose ni dia akan transport balik in the blood. It can be used back by muscle. Okay, so if you understand the Cori cycle, we can see how alcohol can disrupt this process. So when you drink alcohol, only in a large amount lah. If you drink a little bit, it's okay. For Muslim, we cannot drink at all lah. Alright. What happens is alcohol metabolism, this one, only happens in liver. It's not happening in muscle. During the conversion of ethanol, which is alcohol, into acetate in the liver, it will use 2 NAD+ into NADH. Can you see this one? NAD+ ni dia guna both converted into 2 NADH. Now we will have a lot of NADH in the liver, right? But low amount of NAD+. Understand?
Faham tu?
Okay. Bila dah macam ni, what happen? Lactic acid cannot be converted into pyruvate because we have low amount of NAD+. So dia tak boleh nak convert kepada pyruvate. Okay, so when you drink a lot of alcohol, you will deplete the amount of NAD plus in the liver. So lactic acid cannot be converted into pyruvate, and pyruvate cannot be converted to glucose. So what happens is the blood glucose level will reduce in the person who drink a lot of alcohol during exercise. Okay, so you can see from here, the first, it will increase lactic acid acidosis because we will have a lot of lactic acid in the body. Understand the first one?
Faham betul.
Okay. Second, it will decrease the citric acid cycle. Kenapa? Why it will decrease the citric acid cycle? Okay. If you take a look at the citric acid cycle, it also requires NAD plus, right? So if there is no NAD plus, so it will decrease the rate of citric acid cycle. Okay, so basically, actually, anything that requires NAD plus in the liver will be reduced. Okay, for example, decrease fatty acid oxidation because fatty acid oxidation will require NAD plus. It will also decrease gluconeogenesis in the liver because we are not producing pyruvate anymore. So how we can undergo gluconeogenesis, right? Okay, so that's how the alcohol can disrupt the process of Cori cycle during exercise. Right? So go back to your lecture. It's actually just the same. That one is the summary. Okay. You also have this picture here. Okay, this is the explanation. This is the metabolism of ethanol. Ni picture yang saya guna just now lah. Because you decrease the fatty acid oxidation, orang yang minum banyak alkohol will develop what we call as a fatty liver. Dia punya liver jadi putih sebab accumulation of fatty acid, because fatty acid cannot be oxidized, cannot be breakdown, right? But for non-Muslim, it's okay lah for you to drink, but not too much. Only when you drink too much, then you will get this what we call as alcoholic liver disease, right? So this is the consequences lah. You can read it yourself. Okay, for the last one, I'm not sure what it is here, but it's just want to say to you, there are two types of energy utilization. The first one is anaerobic without oxygen. The second one is aerobic. If you do a lot of exercise, you will know the differences. Okay. For aerobic, usually it is the exercise that is not too intense. For example, you are walking, you are gardening, and so on. But anaerobic ni something yang intense lah. For example, you are running marathon for a longer distance. And the difference is it will utilize different fuel. For example, anaerobic, it will utilize a lot of glycogen. Aerobic will utilize a lot of fat. Okay. And anaerobic, this one, especially if you do something that is muscle training, you will use different type of different type of tissue, muscle tissue. Apa? Lupa dah nama dia. Okay, you will use different type of muscle fiber. Okay, for aerobic. For anaerobic, you will use a type 2 muscle fiber. Okay, so people yang strength training, usually they will build muscle, but people who are running, for example, they can build more endurance. Okay, something like that. Okay, I think you can try reading this one yourself. I never asked in the exam because it seems a little bit out of place, but because this one is in the lecture by Professor Nazami, so I include as well. Okay, so I think that's all for today. Any more question before we stop? Any more question before we stop? Semua faham ke ni?
Faham betul.
Really? Betul ke ni? Katanya boleh jawab ni?
Processing, sir, processing.
Faham tapi tak hafal saya. Faham.
Dia actually pretty straightforward kan. It's just that dia banyak lah. Macam notes ni dia ada 30 saya rasa ni. 40 plus kan. Usually in the lecture I give face to face I give 2 hours lah, but online kita bagi try to reduce lah the time. Okay, and when I ask you in the final exam, I won't ask you straightforward question. I won't ask you guys describe gluconeogenesis. Tak payah, you tak payah remember 11 steps. Okay, we will ask something that is requires your understanding. Okay, one of the popular question is I will ask, describe why people who drink a lot of alcohol will always have hypoglycemia. Then you need to understand lah how alcohol can disrupt the process and how eventually the glucose will be low. Okay, then if you can answer means that you understand the lecture. Okay. Another question, for example, kan pyruvate kinase, the last reaction in glycolysis, ada certain orang yang ada deficiency in pyruvate kinase dalam dia punya red blood cell. So kita tanyalah apa efek dia terhadap orang tu, macam mana nak ubat dia, how to treat these people. Okay, then you need to use your KBK apa orang panggil tu KBKK.
Hebat.
Kebat lah to answer that question. Time saya dulu KBKK kan, sekarang korang dah kebat ni. Okay, so you need to find lah. Alright. Sometimes we ask a more general question like, create a food that is suitable for people with diabetes type 1. Okay, just now you know that, right? That people with diabetes type 1, they don't have any insulin. So you need to create something that is consisted of low sugar but high in protein and fat, because protein and fat cannot be, protein and fat, they don't have to use insulin to enter into the cell for the energy. Or probably you can use different kind of sugar. Sebab insulin only react to glucose, but galactose and fructose can be used. Okay, something like that. Okay, any more question? Cepat nak tekan stop dah ni. Any more question before we stop? You know everything? Okay, I belanja muka little bit lah. Dah tak ada suara dah ni. Tak ada
Tak ada doktor.
Tak ada, Doktor.
I think those
Okay, so don't forget to record your attendance, okay? Today and probably Friday, good? Okay, and then I think that's all lah. Okay, bye.
Okay, doctor. Thank you, doctor.
Bye, see you soon.
doctor.